The costumes, the hair. There's only one ABBA. And after decades of going their own way, the Swedish supergroup is back.
So that was, a magical moment. That evening, I think, is when it actually happened. We fell in love. In a shocking revelation that fans never saw coming, ABBA's Björn Ulvaeus has finally opened up about the nightmares he endured during his marriage to Agnetha Fältskog. The guys in the band swear that I fell in love just by hearing her voice. After decades of speculation, the pop icon has confirmed his relationship with Agnetha was far from the fairy tale it appeared to be. Then she started singing, and my God, that was magic. The truth behind their marriage struggles is even darker than fans could imagine, with Björn shedding light on the emotional turmoil that plagued their time together. My beautiful blonde wife still sleeping peacefully beside me. Now, the full story is finally being told. The marriage between Björn Ulvaeus and Agnetha Fältskog, two of the iconic members of ABBA, appeared to the public to be a picture-perfect union. But beneath the surface, there were numerous complexities and struggles that, in retrospect, became clear after their relationship ultimately ended. Many aspects of their marriage were veiled in secrecy, with only a few hints of the turmoil that was brewing behind closed doors. It wasn't until the marriage collapsed that some of these struggles became known to the public. However, there were subtle signs, like cracks in the facade, that hinted at the deep-seated problems in their relationship, which would ultimately shape the course of their lives and careers. One of the first indications that things were beginning to unravel came after a trip that Björn and Agnetha took following their participation in the Eurovision Song Contest, which had catapulted ABBA to international fame. After being away for almost a month, they returned home to find that their young daughter Linda no longer recognized them. Ulvaeus recalled the heartbreaking moment when their daughter wouldn't even come to them, a painful realization that their absence had created a distance that could not easily be bridged. The demands of their careers had taken them away from home for extended periods, and the emotional toll was undeniable. The constant pressure of being international superstars had led them to neglect the most important aspects of their personal lives, particularly their relationship with their child. This moment highlighted the growing tension between their family life and the immense success of ABBA. While the band's popularity skyrocketed, with fans eager for more of their music and performances, the Ulvaeus-Faltskog household began to suffer from the stress of balancing two worlds that couldn't have been more different. The intense commitment required by ABBA, along with the overwhelming demand for their music, meant that both Björn and Agnetha were often absent from home. Yet when they were present, it was clear that the challenges of maintaining a stable home life were overwhelming. Their attention was divided. The band wanted them, their children wanted them, and no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't be fully present for either. This sense of being pulled in multiple directions took its toll, and it wasn't just their children who suffered. Their marriage, in particular, bore the brunt of the strain. For both Björn and Agnetha, it became increasingly difficult to maintain their connection. The demands of stardom and the relentless schedule of tours, recording sessions, and public appearances began to erode the intimacy of their relationship. As much as they tried to support each other, there were moments when they simply couldn't keep up with the pressure. Agnetha's struggles were particularly intense. The intense fame that came with being part of ABBA led to an overwhelming amount of attention from fans. In fact, the fan obsession with the band was so extreme that it caused Agnetha to experience night terrors. She feared that her fans might come and take everything from her, including her family. This irrational but deeply felt fear was not just about the loss of her career or her fame, but also about the disintegration of the personal life that she held so dear. Björn, who had always been a steady and supportive partner, tried his best to be Agnetha's rock during these difficult times. He understood the weight of the fame that was pressing down on her, and he did what he could to alleviate her fears. But it was becoming increasingly clear that the emotional and mental toll of their fame was too much for both of them to bear. As much as Björn wanted to help Agnetha, the pressures of being in such a high-profile marriage and dealing with the continuous demands of their career were beginning to affect him as well. The cracks in their relationship were no longer just subtle signs. they were becoming impossible to ignore. At the same time, Björn was also grappling with the emotional strain of their situation. He was known for being pragmatic and composed, yet the weight of constantly juggling his career, his marriage, and his family was overwhelming. As much as he tried to hold things together, the stress was having a profound effect on him, and the result was the slow deterioration of his relationship with Agnetha. Their marriage, which had once been a source of strength and mutual support, was now crumbling under the weight of external pressures. In early 1979, after years of mounting tension, the couple decided to separate. It was a painful decision, not just because of the emotional impact, but also due to the public nature of their personal lives. To the world, Björn and Agnetha had been the epitome of a glamorous and successful couple, and the news of their split was a blow to fans who had admired their union. But the complexities of their relationship went far beyond what anyone knew at the time. The couple had to navigate the painful experience of divorce while maintaining their professional personas. Even though the reality of their relationship had disintegrated, they reported to the public that they had a happy divorce. This statement, which seemed contradictory to the emotional turmoil they were experiencing, was likely a way for them to shield their fans from the reality of their pain. However, the fans, who had idolized their love story, could not understand what was really happening behind the scenes. While they tried to put on a brave face for the cameras, their music spoke volumes about the emotional distress that was bubbling beneath the surface. In the wake of their separation, Björn Ulvaeus channeled his personal heartbreak and frustration into his songwriting, which ultimately led to the creation of one of ABBA's most iconic and deeply emotional songs, The Winner Takes It All. This track, which would become a chart-topping hit and one of the band's final gifts to the world, was not just a song about love and loss. It was a poignant reflection of Björn's own experience with the disintegration of his marriage. The process of writing The Winner Takes It All was incredibly personal and painful for Björn. According to his account, the song's creation was fueled by a raw and unfiltered outpouring of emotion. Despite the fact that he typically didn't rely on alcohol or drugs as a means of inspiration, Björn admitted that for this particular song, he kept a bottle of brandy nearby as he wrote. The lyrics came out quickly, with the intensity of the moment driving his creativity. He confessed in a 2010 interview with the London Times that although he usually didn't write under the influence of alcohol, he couldn't stop the flood of emotions that poured out during this writing process. By the time he had written the now iconic line, "The gods may throw their dice," the bottle of brandy was empty. This stark imagery in the song encapsulates the feelings of helplessness, resignation, and despair that Björn was experiencing at the time. It was a moment of reckoning for him as he faced the painful reality of his broken marriage and the emotional fallout that came with it. The Winner Takes It All is often seen as an anthem of heartbreak, but for those who understand the backstory of ABBA, it's much more than just a breakup song. It's a deeply personal expression of loss. The lyrics, which describe a woman reflecting on the end of a relationship and the devastation she feels, resonated with fans on a universal level. However, the song's true power lies in the fact that it was written by someone who was living through a similar experience. Björn's ability to translate his personal grief into such a relatable and haunting song made it one of ABBA's most enduring hits. The song's success, like many of ABBA's tracks, was due to its perfect combination of catchy melodies, relatable lyrics, and the emotional depth that resonated with listeners. But for Björn, it was also a cathartic process that allowed him to work through the pain of his personal situation. The release of The Winner Takes It All marked a pivotal moment in ABBA's career, as it was not only one of their last major hits, but also a powerful emotional testament to the struggles and heartache that the band members were facing behind the scenes. In the years that followed, ABBA's personal lives continued to be intertwined with their musical legacy. While Björn and Agnetha's marriage had ended, the music they created together remained a powerful bond that connected them to each other and to the world. The Winner Takes It All was just one of the many songs that captured the spirit of their personal journeys, but it was undeniably the most poignant, given the context in which it was written. It marked the end of an era for the band, signaling not only the end of Björn and Agnetha's relationship, but also the beginning of the band's eventual disbandment. In 1981, shortly after his separation from Agnetha Fältskog, Björn Ulvaeus began dating a woman named Lena Kellerher. The relationship quickly blossomed, and the two eventually married, going on to have 2 children together. This new chapter in Björn's life, however, was incredibly painful for Agnetha, who struggled to cope with the sight of her former husband moving on so swiftly after their divorce. In her 1997 memoir, As I Am, Agnetha candidly opened up about the deep emotional turmoil she felt during this time, reflecting on the harsh reality of their separation. We always told the media that it was a happy divorce, which of course was a front. Obviously, we all know there are no such things as happy divorces, especially when there are children involved, she wrote. The public facade they maintained in front of the cameras hid the true emotional cost of their breakup, and it was clear that the separation was far from amicable, especially from Agnetha's perspective. For Agnetha, the realization that Björn had quickly found love and started a new family was nothing short of distressing. She felt deeply hurt, and it compounded her sense of loss. Agnetha's world had been rocked by the collapse of her marriage, and the appearance that Björn was moving on without a second thought only intensified her pain. The end of their marriage, which had once been an inseparable part of her life, left her in a state of profound emotional disarray. The complex nature of their relationship, intertwined with their personal lives and public careers, made the process of letting go extremely difficult. Agnetha's internal struggle was exacerbated by the fact that, to the outside world, she was expected to remain composed and professional, while in reality she was heartbroken. In order to deal with the overwhelming sadness, Agnetha sought therapy, an essential step in helping her come to terms with the end of her tumultuous relationship with Björn. The therapy helped her to begin healing and processing the emotional fallout of her divorce. She had to learn to cope with the reality that her marriage to Björn was over, and she would now have to navigate life as a single mother with all the challenges and pain that came with it. For Agnetha, the emotional weight of the divorce was hard to carry, and it took years for her to fully come to terms with the changes in her life. However, as much as Agnetha struggled with her personal turmoil, the fact that Björn appeared to be thriving with his new family only deepened her sense of grief. She couldn't help but feel as though he was doing just fine while she was left to pick up the pieces of her broken heart. But in hindsight, it became evident that Björn was not as unaffected as he seemed. Despite his outward composure, the separation had been just as hard on him as it had been on Agnetha, though he had dealt with it in a different way. Björn himself admitted in interviews that the divorce was one of the most difficult experiences of his life, and that he had struggled emotionally even though he may have appeared to handle it better than Agnetha. In an interview, Björn said, "Going through a divorce was as difficult as anyone would know who's done it." This candid admission provided a glimpse into the emotional toll the separation had taken on him. While Agnetha's pain was evident to those around her, Björn's feelings were more subdued, and he often used music as a form of catharsis to express his inner turmoil. In fact, it was during this period that he wrote one of ABBA's most famous songs, The Winner Takes It All, which reflected the emotional devastation of a broken relationship. The song, which Agnetha famously performed, was seen by many as a reflection of the pain both Björn and Agnetha had experienced during their divorce. Despite the outward appearances of composure they both tried to maintain, Björn acknowledged that the divorce was something that occupied his thoughts constantly, and it played a significant role in shaping the lyrics of The Winner Takes It All. But in his view, there was no clear winner in the end. But there was not one winner in the case of us, he stated. The breakup of ABBA in 1982 marked the end of an era for the iconic Swedish pop group. The band's dissolution was the result of many factors, with the personal challenges faced by the band members playing a crucial role. At the heart of these struggles was the emotional toll of the divorces within the group. Björn Ulvaeus and Agnetha Fältskog's separation was particularly painful, but it was far from the only one. The other 2 members of ABBA, Benny Andersson and Annie-Frid Lyngstad, were also going through their own personal separations at the time, further exacerbating the tensions within the band. The personal issues between the members, coupled with the mounting pressure of their global fame, led to a creative and emotional strain that the band could no longer withstand. The early 1980s had brought with it an overwhelming sense of exhaustion, both personally and professionally. For a decade, ABBA had been at the top of the pop music world, producing hit after hit and performing to packed arenas worldwide. But as the members of the group struggled with their personal lives, the magic that once held the band together began to fade. Björn Ulvaeus later reflected on this period, explaining the sudden shift in the band's dynamic. The band had an explosive story and a creative period, but then it all suddenly stopped. He said, "The band's sudden break in 1982 was not the result of one particular event, but rather the culmination of years of personal and professional strain. As the group's individual lives became more complicated, the spark that had driven ABBA's creativity dimmed, and it became increasingly difficult to maintain the chemistry that had once made them one of the most successful musical acts in history." With the divorces and the emotional strain each member was experiencing, it was clear that the group had reached its breaking point. In the end, everyone except Björn and Benny went their separate ways, effectively bringing ABBA's remarkable career to a close. The breakup was not only a professional turning point for the band, but also marked the end of an era for the Swedish music scene. ABBA had been a cultural force throughout the 1970s, and their music had transcended borders, reaching audiences all over the world. Yet the personal and emotional cost of their success ultimately took its toll. And despite their phenomenal career, ABBA was forced to part ways in the early 1980s. For years, ABBA fans mourned the end of the band, and many speculated about the possibility of a reunion. While the members of the band went on to pursue solo projects, the world continued to hold on to the hope that one day ABBA would return. That moment came in 2021, nearly 4 decades after their breakup, when ABBA reunited to produce new songs. This long-awaited comeback not only delighted fans, but also marked a remarkable return to the studio for the legendary group. Their new songs were released as part of a virtual tour featuring avatars of the band members, a groundbreaking and innovative approach to experiencing ABBA's music in a new, high-tech format. The virtual tour allowed fans to relive the magic of ABBA's performances, while also embracing the future of music and technology. In conjunction with their return to music, ABBA also released a documentary titled ABBA Against the Odds. The documentary provided an intimate and candid look at the band's rise to fame, their personal struggles, and the complicated interpersonal relationships that ultimately led to their breakup. For fans, the documentary offered valuable insights into the dynamics of the band, revealing the deep emotional undercurrents that shaped their music and personal lives. It also highlighted the creative brilliance of Björn, Benny, Agnetha, and Anifrid, and how their unique personalities and experiences came together to create the sound that defined ABBA's success. At the age of 79, Björn Ulvaeus reflects on ABBA's incredible journey with a sense of pride and understanding. In the documentary, he shares his thoughts on the creative process that fueled the band's success. "One thing we learned was that everything starts with a song," Björn says. "I think great music is created from the human experience, deep emotions. Writing a lyric is something in between a poem and a melody. It would conjure up not only a mood, but images sometimes in me." This perspective sheds light on the emotional depth that underpinned many of ABBA's greatest hits. The music that made them international superstars was not just catchy pop tunes. It was the product of the band members' personal experiences, their struggles, and their triumphs. Through their music, they were able to express their innermost feelings and connect with listeners in a way that few bands ever have. What do you think about Björn Ulvaeus and Agnetha Fältskog's hellish marriage? Leave us your comments in the section below. We hope you have found this helpful video. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like it. Thank you for watching this, and see you in the next videos. Goodbye.